So recording this from YouTube seems to be the better option, but the lighting's worse? Is that a thing? YouTube, get on that. No, okay, so we're talking about Saturn and Jupiter in this video now. My personal natal Saturn and Jupiter. So Saturn is, or Jupiter, I should talk about first. It's Jupiter, then Saturn. Jupiter is the planet of joy and expansion. It rules Sagittarius, and it is ruled by the 9th house as well, which is very Jupiter energy. It's all about kind of exploring and expanding your knowledge even, and greater philosophies. So my Jupiter is just at the end of my 8th house in Sagittarius. So this is a really great placement because it like rules that sign. And so I can kind of embody kind of natural Jupiter energy in a way, where either sometimes I'm really lucky with things. With it being in the 8th house, it could also mean that like money doesn't come like easily to me, but like I'll always have enough to get by. Like I won't necessarily suffer, or like I'll have my ups and downs with it, but I'm always like provided for in a way, is what could be a thing, because it is in the 8th house, even though that is like the house of, I relate it to the house of transformation, the 8th house, but it's also like a sex, money, and taboo things. So so yeah, so that's the thing with Jupiter meaning like luck, but it can also talk about what makes you like feel good and feel joy. And so with it being in Sagittarius, this could mean like studying higher philosophies. I studied history, I study astrology, traveling, which is true for me, very true. And with this mix of Sagittarian energy and the 8th house, it also speaks to kind of my philosophies of wanting to transform and helping other people's transformations in my own personal journey, and growth on like a soul level, career level, personal level, emotional level, physical level, whatever it is those are kind of things, working on those things and seeing progress, and seeing myself grow and others grow is a way to feel good and feel expansive. So yeah, I still have a lot to learn about Jupiter. It's really interesting because like that sign's not always just going to be a positive sign. I'm trying to like figure out what other things it can lead to, you know what I mean? But yeah, but I guess in saying that, like when I'm not growing, I can be very down, feel very down on my luck, and it can kind of spiral if I'm not growing. But you can't grow all the time. Like even flowers like die for the winter, you know what I mean? So those going through those kind of phases can be really tough for someone with a placement like this, is kind of what that says to me. Saturn is a big guy, and I guess I should just be quite honest here. Like I'm not going to reveal all my secrets about the planets, because I like to save those for as part of the reading, is this like little mini lesson I give you on the planets, but I'm also giving a 12-week workshop on the planets coming up soon. So that's kind of why I'm saying like a sentence and then just talking about the energies in the chart, because there is so much to learn about these planets and their energies and the presence of these planets in your personal astrology, your natal chart, and in just general astrology and the current astrological climate. But Saturn in your natal chart can represent so many things. It's a very powerful planet, and it represents kind of where you may find your harder lessons coming up, how they may manifest, where you may have issues with authority, or where you may feel, the way I see it though most is where you feel called to, where these changes in your life and hard lessons that you're going through are gonna lead you to, is usually what I feel when I read Saturns. So my Saturn is in Pisces in the 12th house, And so with the 12th house, it can kind of mean that like cycles ending and stuff, although like I was saying with my ascendant a few videos back, that energy I can thrive off of and be really excited about. But I just messed up because I was thinking about the fact that you guys can see all my sweaters piled on my bed in the background. So I got a little distracted. Saturn in the 12th house can kind of mean that those kind of cyclical changes are really what turn you up, and then that there's going to be a bigger lesson in terms of like coming to terms with an ending of a phase, or deaths, or certain things in your life are going to be like, oh yeah, that was a lesson. I'm trying to put it into words because I kind of know the energies through my own experiences and what I've had so far, but like moving on from different cycles might be like shake you up with Saturn in the 12th house and be like, oh wow, for a while I was just living in a different world, not expecting this to be part of my experience. But that can also explain general Saturn energy, but with the 12th house, it encompasses so much, because Pisces in the 12th house. Okay, so they're the last signs of the zodiac, so they encompass a lot. They encompass like the whole energy of the zodiac belt, right? So it is such an obscure energy to deal with because it's so much all in one that you can't really pinpoint a specific word to get your general message across, really, with Pisces. With Saturn and Pisces, though, it can be in terms of how you exercise authority, even being compassionate, being emotional, and so there you might have struggles with this placement if you have like authoritative positions yourself, is kind of what like comes through for me. And in terms of Saturn and the direction that it's bringing me to with it in my chart is this spiritual kind of side to myself. Like, so before, I'm excited to see where I'm at when I'm 30, because that's going to be around the end of my Saturn return. But when my Saturn was at its waning square, so when it was in Sagittarius, I started getting into astrology and stuff like that, and it was at an aspect where I was just going through those changes and being like, and ending a cycle. I just got out of university and I was moving houses, and it was really, really hard for me to deal with, and I had finally got in touch with astrology more deeply, and and it kickstarted this whole business that I have going now, and all of my astrological knowledge has been growing from that point of my Saturn return. So Saturn in a way represents like where some of those issues may come from, but also where you're being directed to, is what resonates most for me, especially when I read it in people's charts, because I'm like, is this a desire you have around Saturn? You know what I mean? And they're often like, yeah, I feel called to those areas, or this area I really struggle with because I don't know how I can be successful there, or and stuff like that. So yeah, so with Saturn in this area, like, I'm probably bound to experience certain trials in terms of my spiritual life, and maybe creating a business or having authority in the spiritual field or something like that. But it's all part of like this grander lesson that I got going on. My Saturn is also trine to my Uranus, which is really interesting, just because or not my Uranus, trine to Pluto and sextile to Uranus, which is really fun just because they work together, and those are other really powerful signs that I'm going to talk about now. Or I also like to talk about Chiron, just because like it shows up in most charts that you make online, so a lot of people see it and are kind of like, what's that? And Chiron isn't even an asteroid, it's just like because it's not in the asteroid belt properly, it's just its orbit is in between Saturn and Uranus. So it kind of like has an impact on us all. And the mythology behind Chiron is the wounded healer. Like he was a centaur shot by Hercules, and but was immortal, so couldn't die, but had this like wound that wouldn't heal from Hercules's like poison arrow or something. So Chiron speaks a lot to things like that we experience like that, where there are our own wounds, yet we excel in them, yet we need to heal ourselves from them. Like there's some sort of not balance, I guess, but I want to say balance between these, or contrast between it being a good thing and a bad thing in your life. And my Chiron is in Virgo in the 6th house, and my 6th house is quite large, but Virgo meaning I can struggle being of service to others, or with my health, body, and routine, and that's very important to me, as I said in the last video, because of my Venus and Mercury placements. That kind of can tie into it, so some of my wounds can come from that. And I am like a hypochondriac. I have major anxieties when it comes to my health, but yet I am also a healer myself through my astrology work, trying to help others and be of service through that way. Yet there are certain patterns and certain mindsets myself, kind of like my health anxieties, my own spiritual anxieties and mindset anxieties that I have. So that's kind of how it shows up in my life. It can show up in various ways. Mine's just very clear. I also was like chubbier when I was younger, and my mom was like always on me to be healthy and to lose weight. And so that's also kind of how my Chiron has shown up throughout my life, is like this is happening, and it's just like it's a recurrent theme that there's constantly some kind of struggle in those life areas that you're trying to overcome. And then maybe you do overcome it, so then you're a master at part of it, but then there's another like mogul to go over or something. But yeah, so that's that one. Then with Uranus is, oh my god, I haven't read a chart in a long time. Uranus is the planet of kind of change and of originality. So this is the first trans-Saturnian planet, so it's the planets after Saturn, and Uranus kind of bridges that gap between Saturn and Uranus together bridge the gap between the conscious planets and then the subconscious planets, because as we move to the planets that are further away, there are more energies that are a little bit more abstract, a little bit more subtle, and maybe we won't tune into these energies until we've been a little bit more enlightened or a little bit more in tune to our personal astrology, is kind of what I've realized, because they resonate and they make sense when you explain them in like simplest terms, but then there's so much deeper energy to it that you might not be able to access yet because you have certain mindsets or lessons or experiences to experience before that placement really becomes prominent. So my Uranus is in Capricorn, and so that kind of means that having changes, it's in Capricorn in the 11th house, so I may experience change more in terms of work life and in terms of friendships. And I think like Uranus for my whole generation is usually in Capricorn. A lot of people have it in the 10th house. People around my age, like in the mid-90s, 1990s, if they were born there. And it's really interesting because I find that this generation has like part-time jobs, trying to find work when work needs you to have so much experience and stuff like that. And like I think that's really cool how it defines the generation that way. So yeah, so for me it can be like showing up in terms of like work problems, but them not being like defining problems in my life because my Uranus is in retrograde. But on the inside I'm like, well, what am I going to do with work? Because I want to be an astrologer, but I need to make money. I want to be an astrologer, but I need to make money. I just said that. I want to make money, but astrology makes me happy, stuff like that. And then with the 11th house placement, it's like this connection to career and my hopes and my dreams and like what I want to achieve and what I dream up in terms of work, like in terms of my courses and stuff, can I achieve them? And really, I can't achieve them until I make certain changes. Like I can't, like I just noticed literally this second that I was having trouble putting my course out into fruition, like having, like actually writing it down and being able to channel it properly without having made a certain change that I just did recently. So that's really cool how that can show up too. So getting a reading with me kind of like helps enlighten you to those things too. Like now I'm like, oh yay, that decision was right and it was meant to be, and I feel very happy about it. But yeah, and it's like tuning into those things in astrology readings too, and usually I'll elaborate more on things as well. But yeah, so that's kind of cool how that can show up. Anyways, and then with Uranus, also change maybe in terms of my friendships, like maybe not always having a best friend, or just having a lot of people around who are more important at certain times in my life, like not always just like sticking to one person. So